Hi, this is Patek. I'm going to do a little quick start guide for the Unholy War on PlayStation for the exchange race. I'm going to go into the Mayhem mode first of all and introduce you to the teams and their characters. So on the left you can see the Technos and on the right is the Arcane. They are pretty well balanced. You can choose either of these sets of teams to play in the strategy mode. So let's just go in here, and this is your Mayhem mode fighting area. You've got various different maps that you can pick from, and these maps represent the hexes that will be on the game in the strategy mode. Each of them is good and bad in certain ways, has different power-ups. I recommend you play a few games in this mode on the easy AI and just get used to what you like and what you don't like. So, this is the Techno's character, the Quicksilver. You can also see if you press square you get info about them. So, the battle is what you do in Mayhem mode, which is when two characters fight on the map. So Quicksilver is generally not so useful except in very close combat. They're not really very flexible and they can have problems against a lot of enemies. But the Tesla is a super character because not only can they teleport in fights, they can teleport on the strategy mode as well. And that, if you're playing as the Technos, is going to be one of the main ways you play, is just by teleporting straight to the enemy and dealing death. So they've got a bouncing bolt that does 10 damage, you can teleport away, and you can also launch crystals which will home in on the enemy. And they're generally very good. They're actually one of the better characters to use against a Fire Witch, for example. It says they're weak against the Magus Lizards. That's not exactly true. They're generally a very solid character to use. They're recommendable. Kill cycles are also one of the best characters you can use because in Mayhem you can launch a kamikaze attack up to 70 damage, although you do have to be careful not to miss or not quite kill somebody at the end. So I tend to only use it when somebody's got 50 health or less. But the advantage of that is that if you've already destroyed an enemy's base in strategy mode, or if they don't have a base, you can kamikaze their last character, and then you will win the map quicker. But they've also got just energy burst bombs, where you can lure a character over to you and launch a string of bombs and just kill a 100 strength character in seconds. Very, very powerful. They also move 3 on the strategy mode, which is far better than 2, so they're very useful. Jaegers are also very useful. The nuke power is generally not really that beneficial because they've got a very mashable power in the fighting. If you go to the Mayhem mode, you'll see that all the top times use Jaegers right now. So this is one of the characters where when you get an energized power up, you've got infinite energy, you want to actually be mashing your button rather than holding it down. Generally, the punch is not so strong. If you're right in close, you can mix in punches and lasers, but generally what you'll be doing is jumping around, firing a bunch of lasers, and then moving back and firing rockets. And they tend to get good results against Fire Witches because you can attack from a distance, and then when she comes into attack, you can generally punish for that. Mantises have one advantage in the strategy mode, which is that when you've got one enemy right next to you, one of your team, sorry, you can overload them, which means that you spend a little bit of currency, but they get 150% life and energy. So I use that with a kill cycle or with a Tesla just to make it extra powerful, and that gives me a bit of insurance against losing my first character and having problems after that. In fighting, they're very specifically useful in small maps where the enemy can't get away, but they are a little bit vulnerable at times as well. So I generally wouldn't use these for picking fights. Razor Fanes are again very powerful. They only move 2, but they've got a lot of life. They're a good all-round character. The only thing they struggle with can be fire witches, but everything struggles against fire witches. And you've got your buzzsaws, you've got your dervish thing. The dervish move is useful because if a character from the enemy goes right into your hitbox, you generally won't be able to damage them, and they can still hit you and hit you. Dervish will tend to cure that. But the Razorfane also has the Blade Wall, which is where you can launch 3 barriers. You can launch them all at the same part of the map, just stand still. And then you can entice the enemy to walk over them and just insta-hurt themselves for 30. It's very powerful indeed. So that's one of the characters you might want to use on the first map. Wasps are pretty much useless unless you are a computer. They're a pain in the arse, and they're good for healing, but that's about it. I do not recommend you use them. And then we'll go to the arcane side. Now, the arcane is very slightly easier for a beginner to play, and they have a slightly more rounded roster of characters. So the Ecton is a very useful all-round character. You can whip from a distance and cause 10 damage. It slows the enemy down as well, which is really good for keeping the bigger ones in check. And then when you use your whale on the triangle button, you can basically steal life from the enemy and give it back to yourself. So the Ecton is very good for if you're not so confident as a fighter, or if you want to be very aggressive, because you can spam whip and whale together and do 15-20 damage, but also heal yourself as well. And you can lay traps as well. The Eat Soul power up on the strategy maps is in theory useful, but there are times when if you do that to an enemy, it will run away from you and it might actually cost you time. So it may be not so useful. Prawn Devils, I wouldn't recommend you use. There are better characters. But if you do want to use them, they're pretty good for getting in close and use your bite mostly. Lay a couple of eggs and just keep biting, because it will be hard for the enemy to get you out of their hitbox again. Maguses, again, we don't really use them in the strat mode because they're very slow. They are very slow movers. They don't have any good map power. They're more just like a close combat thing. I give it as a backup, really. Brontus can be useful in specific circumstances. So against wasps in small battlefields, for example, they can be very useful because it's easy to spam your buttons because they've got a lot of life and power. But apart from that specific setting, they're not too good except as a backup character because they're very vulnerable to distance attacks and they're quite slow. Fire Witches are amazing. There is not in the Strategy 5 a situation where you tend to use them. You could use it on River Crossing, but generally they're like a second option, a backup option. Again, they've got the firewall, so you can spam 3 firewalls together, get your enemy to move over it, instant damage. You can slam down into things, and there are some times on the Mayhem where you can use a bouncy surface and go straight back up and be invincible again. They're generally good for a secondary character if you've run out of options. Dark Angels are possibly the best character in the entire game. If you're going to play the Arcanes, this is mostly what you're going to use. So again, it's a character like with the Jaeger where you're going to want to mash your buttons because of the way the game works. The I-beams are incredibly powerful and they've got a massive amount of life. The Shockwave is useful for anybody who's just slightly out of reach. Obelisk don't generally want to worry about because you'll be able to pick up health power-ups in the maps anyways. But the main thing with the Dark Angel is the fact that you can transport him. So the move is a flying of 2, but you can also transport yourself up to 3 away at a cost of a little bit of currency. So in the 4th map, you will literally want to use 2 angels to transport 1 all the way up the board to the enemy's base. Basically, these guys are the strongest character in the entire game. Learn to use them and be aggressive with them. And then finally, you've got the Moglin Rider. Again, very useful. We're going to possibly consider using them in a couple of maps. You've got a far away attack with the Sparkler. You've got a close-up one with the Tongue. That's not terribly useful. It tends to be a false economy somehow when you try and mash the two of them together. Sparklers just tend to be better. But the Tongue will allow you, instead of taking power-ups such as health or energize or invincible, to eat the power-up, and then if you press Tongue again, you'll burp it back out, and you will actually launch a projectile at the enemy, which will follow them and hurt them for like 20, I think it is. It's a really useful little thing, especially if you're struggling with like a wasp in a battle. They can also cure themselves, so you might want to use that if you've had a slightly bad battle and then you're going on to somebody else's base. They're a general good all-around character, but they also move 3 instead of 2, so again that makes them preferable. So now that you've seen all the characters, let's go into the strategy mode and give you an idea what the maps are like. So you can play as either the Technos or the Arcanes on easy AI. Your character complements will be different both sides, so let's just go with the Technos first of all. And as far as starting the game, you've got a cutscene first, and time will start when you press X here. So in this first map, there is no base for either side, and there is no ore. Ore is the map currency that you use. So you'll see you've got 0 ore, and the nuke button, for example, here is inactivated. You can't use any map powers. So what you need to do is eliminate a Piranha Devil, an Amegus Lizard, and an Ecton. And your main choice is going to be to use the Razorfane. You want to move him to this hex, which gives you manipulation, and then fight here. Alternatively, you can use the kill cycle. You can move him 2 squares forward, try and get a manipulation for these characters, and then press select, press X to pass your turn, and let's get them moving. The enemy seems broadly to have aggressive and passive moves based on how you play your characters. We've got the Prana fighting us. Notice how long this cutscene here takes. One of your goals in the game is going to be to lower the time of those. So we're on the desert map. We can fire bombs. What we're going to do, lure him over. Bombs. That's him done. Little cutscene. And then you should be aware that at this transition here back onto the map, it is possible that the game will freeze. I think that might just be my computer, but if it does happen, then let me know and we'll use an emulator online. So you've moved him already, he can't move again. We'll just pass the turn. And we're getting the Megas to come and fight us again in the desert. It's actually better to fight in the volcano, but this is not really such a problem. And again, the Megas can generally be tempted in. You can see I've still got 4 health left, which is okay. And what we're going to do with the next character, if you do this, is to destruct him. So you're just going to immediately say, I don't want to do this anymore, and try and dive bomb him. Exons are very, very powerful characters. He's running away, actually, that's understandable. We can catch him up. You might be able to find specific manipulations of moves that make it quicker as well. You also want to choose which of these hexes you want to fight on, because some are better than others for different characters. So I am immediately going to hold the circle button and destruct. We're going to get a crosshairs and we are going to try and destroy this guy and win the round. There we go. And because I've still got characters, that is round 1 complete. Make sure not to save a bit of time there. Cutscene. And on the second map, you've got a few options for the technos. You've got a whole bunch of enemies. You've got all powers as well now, and 3 ore to begin with. So you could use the Jaeger to come forward. Hive is a particularly good area to fight in because it's small and compact, and you get energizer beams. Or you could use the Mantis to overload the Tesla or the kill cycle because they're adjacent. And then you could use one of those to go all the way in. So probably the safest method for a new player is going to be to overload the Tesla, transport him up here to this hex. No, you can't do it to occupied. So 50, and then fight the Prana. You want to fight the Prana first because they can try to breed on their turns, and they'll get free warriors basically. You don't want that. So shoot a few times, teleport away. One thing to be aware of with this game, the directional shooting, it's like it's 8 directions and it fires in the closest direction. Sometimes it's a bit janky. Do be careful with that. And then hopefully on his turn you'll get fights. Like these cutscenes here take up a lot of time, and sometimes you can specifically try and chain them together. Also, you can oftentimes just jump with the right cadence and fire, and you will avoid all of his attacks. Because the AI on the easy level is pretty simplistic. You can shot cancel shots as well, so there are times you will literally just be shooting at each other for 5 seconds like a Laser Quest battle or something. You can do a little nifty thing there, teleport out the way and have a kind of hollow character. Completely pointless. And the Fire Witch can be a pain, so if she runs away, what I like to do is I would have moved the Jaeger to begin with, move him forward onto this ore square so that he's getting more power, and then nuke her, because it will take away like 15 points of damage. Saves a bit of time. So move over 1 square, come and fight her. And the Fire Witch is one of the difficult ones. You've got to be able to know how to tempt her into not being directly above you, so moving left and right and firing. This log here is particularly useful for this because you're higher, and you can use these crystals to damage her. Teleport out, get her out the way. These fights can sometimes take a while, so that's another reason you might prefer the kill cycle over Jaeger strats, because one bad Fire Witch can basically ruin a run of this. There she is. So map 2, not too bad, you've got some options. Map 3, I'm going to recommend a specific manip with just the kill cycle, where what you're going to do is move just 2 squares forward here and pass. And what that does is it makes this Moglin Rider go backwards, which saves on movement time. And then we fight the Fire Witch, and then we just fight the other 2 in the base. So this fight, you do have to be slightly careful. You do want to keep your health here. But if you're good, you can save your bombs up until she's right beneath you, and then just fire. And at the start of the round, you've got enough ore for 2 sets of bombs. None of those have worked. Oops. So let's go into here. There's teleporters here that you can use. That green power-up is an energize. That's going to give me infinite energy, so I'm just going to spam my buttons. There she goes. Those energized power-ups come on every map. You also get Ankh-shaped power-ups, which are health. 16 points, not too much, but it can be useful. So you've beat her, pass. Remember, there's a base here, so you can't self-destruct on this fight. You just have to defeat these two characters plain. Again, the Magus, we should be able to lure him in with some bombs. On the easy AI, it seems to like chase and run, so you might sometimes want to lure somebody in with a hit. And then if you're playing as the Arcanes particularly, the kill cycle loves to run away unless you give them a hit first. Modeling fights are generally not bad. There's a graphical glitch there just because of the emulator I'm using, not a problem. There we go. That makes map 3 nice and easy anyways. Hold X at the end to break the base and get the cutscene text up quicker. Now map 4 is, again, I highly recommend doing a specific strategy where what we're going to do is retire a few warriors. So press X on the base, then press square, and retire this warrior, and this warrior. Press X to buy a Tesla and put it here. And then teleport it all the way up here, and then fight these 3 characters and don't die. That's all you have to do on this map, and the good thing is this is a really useful map because not only can you teleport, but there's a teleport through 2 separate sections, and if you lay 3 crystals, it's very hard for the enemy to actually control them all. So Magus is a pretty slow character. You can see he just likes launching birds because he's been watching old Volvic adverts. And if you can trap him up here, you can generally get some hits in there as well. One of these fights will typically be a little bit slow, don't worry about that. If he's getting too close, just teleport away. Notice the arrow there, now he's in trouble. You can see the firing is a little bit wonky, but it does kick in nicely once you get it. So that's one of your fights done, there's 2 more left. Even taking your time with this is quicker than doing it the other way, so this Brontu really does have a lick of speed to it, do be careful. And if you want to keep your Quicksilver or buy another warrior for safety, feel free. I could even die here. So now I'm going to have to be slightly careful on my next fight because it's going to take a long time to win otherwise. And as long as you have a base, you will get 10 ore per turn. So it's very important to kill off the enemy's base as quick as you can to make sure that he doesn't create new enemies. This is nice. Well, it was. He was lured into a defensive cycle there and he just wouldn't move. Transport over, nearly got it, that's okay. It is a little bit nip and tuck with the Tesla, particularly in this situation where I'm dead low on health. So again, you may find a different way to play this map that is a little bit safer. It's just whatever works for you. It's gone passive again, that's good. And remember, don't die, because you need to capture the base. Angels in the air can't recharge, fire witches can. So once you let an angel exhaust all of his energy, they are ripe for the picking. And that's map 4. Map 5 is basically the same thing, just use a Tesla, back all the way over and kill everybody, but it's going to be in the lab, and that is the best one. So you may have seen that we've got a bunch of runs on the leaderboards, which fight in the lab. In fact, excuse me, this isn't the lab, I'm confusing myself. But it's in the Glen, so this is not a bad location either. Obviously, if you do die, you've got backup characters to use. So let him exhaust some of his energy, teleport away, try and get him in the right angles. And again, there are times when he will just go lame, and you can keep shooting and firing without worrying about it, and just kill him from here like this. In this map, you also want to look out for the high jump icon, which is quite useful against fire witches. So there's a warp here as well under these 2 points. Is he going to miss that health? Yes, he is. Always makes me laugh when they miss something right under the noses like that. And we've even got a nice passive Bronze 2 fight there. That's good. So the Fire Witch is the awkward one. Because she can recharge in the air. You can use these things to get height. No, this might be a nice safe strat if you're low on health, but it is hard to target her like this. You can see I'm kind of getting nowhere. But coming out and moving, that's not so bad. Notice when she is swirling around like that, that is generally a sign she's going to try and stomp you. So that's when you want to maybe teleport away, because she's got a fair range to that attack. All that swirly movement, that's your sign. And I'll move to that health to stop her getting it. There you go. So use that to get height and then just keep whacking him. Once you've done this map, you just want to hold X, and when you see Techno's Victory, that is all the 5 maps. That's your category done. So I'll just go through the same thing with the arcanes and give you a rundown of the strats there. Okay, so the arcane is very slightly easier. The times for both are pretty much the same. So in this case, we've got 5 warriors against a Razorfane and a Tesla and a Jaeger. The best minute I found so far, you can use the Ecton, but it's slightly quicker to use the Moggle into this specific hex and then pass. And what we're going to do is trap the Jaeger in and make him fight us, which is going to save a few seconds on a refight. So they both move over. Then you can move 2 forward again and pass. And then move up and specifically target the Jaeger. So when you've got an option of 2 fights, it will make you choose. Pick this one. And this is the lab which I was talking about earlier. So in the center, there's a crystal that gives you infinite energy, but it takes a little bit of your health. And you'll tend to use that and try and spam all your attacks. Work out where you are, so he almost got it there, that wouldn't be good. And if I'm in close, I can generally do a little bit of tonguing as well, like that, but you get hit, it's not really so fun, because he does a lot of damage. And now in this specific case, the Razorfane wants to fight, so we save a few seconds, and then there's the energy, just keep mashing your buttons. There you go. You want to keep about 20 or more health for the next fight, because you'll be able to end it quickly. And here is exactly the crash I've been talking about. I am not sure why that's happening to me at the moment. If that happens to you, there is a website we can play the game on. I haven't had any crashes there so far at all. I'll just go through and show you each map in turn basically now. So map 2 for the arcanes, you get to play with an angel. What I recommend is move the angel 2 squares forward and then pass. And then what that will do is set it up so that you can get a treble fight and you can be nice and aggressive because it's all on the lab. The kill cycle moves forward here, sometimes it's the wasp, but you can fight the kill cycle first and we'll hopefully see the chase behaviour I mentioned earlier. So he's getting some hits and running away. He's going to try and use his bombs because he's floating high. But he's on 0, so now he's in the passive and we can just kill him. But typically what happens is he'll just keep running away and he's just out of reach. And you want to get him one hit in and then just kill him after that. From here you can do the square button to transport to this hex. Surrounded on all sides, pass, and then he will start 3 fights. And now you can really go ham. You see how quickly that Tesla dies. Get the Energizer power up. Now we should be able to do some damage. Bear in mind, this doesn't mean that you can go straight into his hitbox and go with abandon. You do still have to be careful not to lose your health. The health you end up with at the end of each fight does have some manipulation to the next enemy move, like here the wasp has run away, but you can't do too much about that. In this case you've been unlucky and you've ended up with a cutscene extra, but that's about it. Again, you can use an Ecton on this map if you want to, like transport the Ecton forward or even the Fire Witch. You've got a decent amount of leeway, but if you want to go the fastest way, this is what you would do. Then there's also a manipulation on the third map here. Move the Moglin to the Desert Hex here. Move the Ecton 1 square forward and pass. We're going to use the Ecton to fight a Razorfane, and that's going to distract them enough so that the Moglin can go and take over the base. Because Moglins aren't so good against Ectons, against Razorfanes, excuse me. But also, if you need the Moglin to kill the base, it stands to reason that you don't want her to die. Whereas if you're using the Ecton, it doesn't matter, you can go all ham. So he's a little bit aware, but that's alright. Start whipping him. You got your Scream. The Scream does immobilise you, so be careful using that at distance, because you'll suddenly get a lot of damage off you. You can see I can mash the two of them together. Happy Ecton, he's going to sleep well tonight. He's done his job. Over to the Moglin. Sometimes the Wasp will come and fight you there. If it does, then just cure afterwards and still move up. And then again, make sure to target the base here. And the Hive is good, but be aware that it's bouncy, so you've got to time your hits. And there's a green regeneration beam, and there's a red pain beam that come out as well that you can use to harm or hinder your enemies. So there is the green beam, lots of health, very nice. Wasps can be a pain when they're slightly close to you because they will start to get outside the hitbox. So try and get a couple of hits in from far away and then just mash like that, because once they start attacking you, it's really hard to stop them. Map 4 is interesting for the arcanes. It's one of the ones that I haven't got a full solution for yet. In theory, you can use a Bronto here to kill all the wasps. It might be a little bit slow, but it might be something you prefer. So you can either use this guy or this guy. In either case, what you want to do is retire the Magus and buy an angel. You can place him here, or you can place him here. And it's where he's from that determines how far this guy can transport. So if I place the angel here and transport this Bronto, it's the range from this square that counts. So transport the Bronto up here. If you want to try this manip, you want to move the Bronto forward to here, reject the fight, and then move this angel forward. And what you're hoping is that 3 wasps will come together around the Bronto, and again, save a few cutscene time. That's not bad actually to begin with. And there's a well in the middle of this map where you can bounce through and then just get to the hitboxes like this. So, see, I'm getting different heights on that, it's really useful. You can also literally just fart at the wasps, which is really cool. Just literally make them walk through it and then do a thunder roar. It's a really nice technique. And we get the refight, that's pretty... Any 2 refights here is good for this level. Energize for Bronto is absolutely ridiculously useful because you can just spam everything. The only problem with the wasps is they're often in a different vertical plane to you, so you've got to sort of land on them like that. If you wanted to do it a different way, I suppose you could also use a Moglin. But again, you're trying to reduce map movement time, really. That's like your main priority. And the wasp moves back there. You're going to use the Bronto to go towards the base. And then the angel you got forward here is going to take care of that other wasp there. Transport him over here. And then I will just come out and show you the other general manip for that level. Again, this is not exhaustive, you might find better options. You do whatever works for you and just enjoy the game. But the other option is to retire the Magus, buy an angel, use the front one to transport the back one to here, transport him up again, and then move him into this hex. Because what you want is to get the wasps to come back to the base altogether and then destroy it quickly, and then you can't create any more wasps. So with this manipulation, you would think that you would go to the base. Actually, it turns out if you just null move and fight this wasp, you will end up with trouble fights after this. And this map here is pretty useful because there are these toxic barrels. If you can get the wasp near one of those, it will do more damage. Again, you've got to be careful not to get it too close to you, but it's generally a good time. That move comes off and you pass your turn, because you've got nothing productive to do. And it looks slow because these are all moving, but these moves are constant. We're still saving cutscene time. You've now got 3 of them together, and the AI prioritizes defending that base, so that will save time. So we'll go up here. Again, pick the right hex. I don't know why it does that, it's badly programmed. But now we just have to fight these. And one of these fights will probably go a little bit bad, but here, that's not bad to begin with. And you could see there at the start that the angel was firing kind of 3 o'clock, too far right. You've got to kind of line it up and know when to mash and know when to hold. Again, you can walk into those barrels and get the wasp to chase you if you want to and get a bit of damage off. Because you've got a decent health bar with the angel as well, 75 is quite nice. All that matters is that you don't die before you take the base. There we go. He's an environmentally conscious angel. He's going to remove some toxic waste free of charge. Base destroyed. And then all you have to do is use your other angel and come over here. This is basically the fastest way to do this level that we found so far. It's touch and go as to whether that circle thing works. Sometimes I think it's just the heights of the characters. And then again in 5, the final map, for the arcanes, you can do a manip where you double fling angels forward. And it's a nice quick one. So press X on the base. What's going on here? It's not working. Press square to retire. Retire the Fire Witch. Buy an angel. Front, transport the back. Transport again. And then this really is the lab, all the way up here. This is bloodbath time. If you get this right, you can finish these fights in like 50 seconds. So, check where you are. Get onto here. Bye-bye. That was nice and quick, wasn't it? You can also do a run of Mayhem mode in the lab if you would like. That's like our main category that we would love everyone to join. Even the Tesla is no match for an angel. This kill cycle, this one tends to go passive sometimes, so let him hit you. And in this case you get lucky and he does the defense cycle again. He'll tend to hop around. That's the Unholy War. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you don't get a crash like that again.